all name a solemn moment of prayer, and then we'll have our pledge. Thank you. Ms. Tarzan will lead us with the pledge first.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, would you call a roll and establish a quorum for this call meeting?
Yes, Deanna Ballman.
Here.
Craig Kelly.
Here.
Kermit Kendrick.
Here.
Amy Madonna.
Here.
Amy Tosney. Here.
We do have a quorum today. This is a special call meeting to interview for our new CSFO for Hoover City Schools. Ms. Madonna has been working very hard to coordinate this. So at this point, I'm going to turn this interview over to Ms. Madonna, who's on your far right, and she'll establish the protocol for how we're going to talk to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good morning. Thanks for coming. I'll just give you just a little idea of the process that we'll follow. We'll open up by asking you to give a short opening statement, try to keep it a little bit, like a little under 5 minutes or so, just to give us an opening statement about you and your background, your professional background experience. We will then, I will ask the first question and we'll just go down the row. And each board member and the superintendent will ask a question, and then once we finish there, we'll just go back around and ask another question. You're welcome to take notes, and if you have any questions that need clarification, please feel free to ask during the process. At the end, we'll try to keep about 5 or 10 minutes for just some closing remarks or any questions that you might have for us. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's get started. Any other questions or anything from the board?
Thank you.
Great. All right, so we'll start with, what do you see as the most important role of the CSFO, and how has your previous I'm giving you an opening statement. I'm jumping right into questions. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Stop. You, please give us some opening remarks. Thank you.
Okay. I am Melissa Johnson. I have lived in Hoover for the last almost 10 years now. I have worked for the Examiners of Public Accounts for 5 years, Department of Revenue for 5 years, and I've been lately with the Jefferson County Board of Education for the last almost 13 years now. I've been their internal audit director all that time, responsible for auditing all of their schools. They have 56 schools and 3 community education zones, and pretty much been the school liaison for them during that whole process. With the Examiners of Public Accounts, I audited boards of education, any county commissions, any county government seat. And then with the Department of Revenue, I did audit work for fuel taxes.
Great. All right, now I will ask my question. What do you see as the most important role of the CSFO, and how has your previous experience, which you just gave us a little bit of a taste of, prepared you to be a successful CSFO for Hoover City Schools?
Well, I feel like the most important part of being a CSFO is being the guardian of the funds that are here with the Board of Education, making sure they are collected and spent within the guidelines of all state and local and federal guidelines, policies, and procedures that have been set out for us. Pretty much I feel that my experience in the past, especially the last 13 years with the Jefferson County Board of Education, has made me better aware of how a school system functions, what needs to be done. I can see a long-range plan, help to put it in action, provide analysis for how we collect, how we spend our funds, make sure that we are the guardians of that money and that it's utilized as we need it to.
Ms. Johnson, good morning.
Good morning.
Kermit Kendrick, and again, thank you for joining us today. I want to dovetail on part of your last response where you said you understand how a school system works. Describe your understanding of the governance and administrative structure of a school system.
Well, I can speak to how Jefferson County is arranged. There's the board, and our board is elected. We do have an appointed superintendent, The board is the hiring and firing capability, has the hiring and firing capability. They set policies and procedures and approve, they approve what has already happened, basically, as far as day-to-day operations go. But the day-to-day operations actually would fall under the superintendent and the department heads. They would work together to make sure that the board continues, or excuse me, the school system continues to function as it needs to provide for the students.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Tosny, glad you're here. If you're hired, what would you expect to be your biggest challenge in your first year as the CSFO of Hoover City Schools?
Well, I have not been a CSFO before, so I would imagine the biggest challenge would be to start learning that position. I have been with the examiners for 5 years. I have an idea, not only an idea, I have done this. I have put together financial statements for boards before. I have made sure that they're in compliance with the laws as they pertain to school governance, or to school books, excuse me. And I think just learning what your expectations of me would be, learning what the superintendent's expectations of me would be the first challenge. And then after that, I feel like I'm a pretty fast learner, so I feel after that I could start to really function as a strong candidate, a strong employee.
Awesome, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So describe your experience in assisting with and/or performing a year-end close, including the preparation of annual financial statements.
Okay, with Jefferson County, I close out all of those local schools. It's my job to make sure that their balance sheet items such as their cash, change cash, any investments they have, any receivables or payables they have, we have the appropriate backup documentation for our external auditors, for the examiners, when they come in, and then physically closing out each one of them as we have made sure that they're correct. As far as preparing financial statements, I have not done that with Jefferson County, but when I was with the examiners, we did a lot of compilation of the financial statements for the schools that we audited, for the school boards that we audited. And although I haven't done that for a while, I don't think much has changed. I think I should be able to pick that back up quite easily.
As a follow-up to Ms. Bowman, do you participate in your budget, going forward budget, your budget amendments? Do you participate with CSFO, and have you been sitting at the table when they did those?
No, I have not.
All right. This is a little bit well, I'll just ask the first question. Describe your knowledge of the Alabama bid law. And I know that's a broad question, but I'll let you try to.
Well, let's see, the bid law, there's actually two parts. There's the bid law itself, and then there's the public works section. So the bid law, we have anything over $15,000. If you're going to use taxation money, appropriated money, you're going to have to be in compliance with bid law and with the public works. For just the bid law portion, you're gonna have anything over $15,000 of one item or like items. You need to have a bid process. When we go fully into the bid process, I might could remember all of it. You would have to solicit bids from people that you knew, vendors that you knew, provided this item or like items. You can specify very clearly what you would like to have. For instance, if you want a specific brand, you could specify that brand. Let's say you have a bid opening. Once they're submitted, you have to write the specs, of course. Once the bids are submitted, you have a bid opening in kind of an open meeting, and award the bid accordingly. After that, the board would approve acceptance of the bid.
You mentioned if it's taxpayer money, you would have to bid. Do you have to bid if it's not taxpayer money?
If the money is derived from the taxpayers, you have
I
to.
understand, but what if it's private?
If it's local, like donations, class fee money, usually it's at the local school level that you would not have to get. Or if it's under that $15,000 limit.
This, I know you're probably giving these questions ahead, so I want to make sure. We're very fortunate in our two high schools. We have most all, we have all the state sports that we're able to support. So I'm just going to talk about, we have a baseball team, we have a softball team at both high schools, of course. Hypothetically, if a local booster club offered to donate $100,000 for a renovation of a project, and then the labor of that project could be done by your employees, what's got to be considered for you to accept that? What issues might come up? What all has to be considered for that scenario to take place?
Well, that's a good question. I would probably, the money from the boosters would not be, I don't think it would be an issue to accept, as that is what they are there to provide for the schools. They probably have fundraised specifically for this particular renovation or whatever is going to be taking place at the high schools. The issue that I would have would come in with the employee labor. Is that violating anything with, say, IRS regulations? How do we factor that in? Does the bid law apply or public works law? And given that.
Public Works is what the question's asking.
Public Works, yes. So I would need to probably discuss that issue with the board attorneys to find out, make sure that we are in compliance and what we're doing.
Very good. Thank you.
Good morning. I too am delighted that you're here. Thank you so much for your interest in Hoover City Schools. The job that you applied for is really going to require you to do a lot of interfacing with a lot of stakeholders. And so that's going to be the board, it's going to be the superintendent, it's going to be city officials, it's going to be parents and clubs and organizations. And so talk to us about the experiences that you had that's going to strategically place you to be able to have that interfacing with all those different groups.
Okay, I have provided a lot of training as far as our employees go. I have gone to board meetings and been aware of what's going on there. Talked with various booster clubs and organizations to help them to understand what our expectations are, what we would need from them. Mostly I think it's just been on the job. I haven't had any official training myself to understand how to deal with the public at large, but mostly I believe that if you listen to them, they will listen to you. You just provide your best face, put your best face forward for them, and they will be very responsive to you.
Can I ask a follow-up? Have you been in a situation where you're presenting something to a large group of people where there could be some questions, and how did you deal with that if that's something that you've had the experience of?
I've presented to both all of our local school employees as far as the office coordinators go, a large group like that. I've presented to principals before. Always questions from each group, and basically I try to answer as best I can. I don't give the information that I don't feel I'm absolutely 100% confident of the answer. If I feel like I need to research it more, then I will tell them that.
Board members, do you mind if I just stay there for just one more moment?
Absolutely.
So to the extent you're in a meeting and you've been polite and courteous and listening, but the meeting turns contentious because people are passionate about their children and they're passionate about the way that we use taxpayer money. Talk to us about being in the situation where it becomes contentious and you need to maintain composure, control, or talk to us about that. Have you been in such a situation? And talk to us about your skill set in being in a meeting where everybody's not holding hands and agreeing to a process.
For the most part, should things turn contentious like that, I think a lot of it you have to kind of let them vent, let them get their emotions out to an extent. I realize we can't let it go on forever, but you do want to let them feel that they're being heard, help them to understand our position as well, and continue to remain calm and as you said, maintain composure so that we can remain in control of the situation.
Been in one of those situations before?
On occasion.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we'll come back around. Switching gears just a little bit, I have a background in data analysis, so I'm kind of interested in what type of analysis would you perform to determine the financial health or condition of the school system?
We can look at a trend analysis to compare to prior years to see if we're on target, to see if we're increasing or decreasing, pretty much in any sort of area such as revenues or expenditures. And you can also apply that to student data if we're increasing as far as the number of students we have. How is that increasing? You can look at what areas. Again, you're gonna use that when you're looking at financial statements to determine that you are on track for the year. And I know the bulk of the revenue for a school board will come in between like October and December. And that's our revenue. We have to make that last all the way to the next October. So,
And you've had experience with these leading and coordinating these types of analyses?
I have done these analyses before, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, could you please describe your experience in developing, implementing, and evaluating a school system's budget and ongoing fiscal management, and provide us some concrete examples of the size budgets with which you've had experience?
With Jefferson County, mostly, when I first started, we were given a budget for our department. And that is, really, it's just like, here is your dollar amount. And you could take it and put it where you saw fit. If you were going to purchase mostly supplies or you needed computers, whatever you needed, you would put that in the budget and resubmit it to our department head, which is Sheila Jones. Give that to her, and she would compile the budget. Now, in more recent years, it's been more of she compiles it, and then the rest of us, when we go through it, we look at it to make sure that it's where we need it to be. If we need to do budget transfers, we will, and take care of it that way. As far as, wait, I have to back up. We also have, or I also have experience where we've done with the local school budgets. They would come in and enter their budgets. I would give them training on how they're supposed to do their budgets, help them to understand what they're trying to aim for. The same things that I would tell you. Are you looking to make a large purchase of computers? Are you looking to buy supplies? Are there programs you want to implement? And try to help them understand that they need to incorporate all that into their budget. Now, as far as evaluating, in my current position, we don't evaluate. However, when I was with the examiners of public accounts, the evaluation was part of the audit. We would look at the budget to make sure they're maintaining what they're supposed to, that they actually adhere to their own budget, the way they set it up, what the budget transfers were, how they affected the financial statements, things like that.
And what about size of the budget?
The size of the budget, as far as my personal budget, is only around $10,000 for my department because we're very small. Now, as far as the local school budgets, if you look at all local schools as a whole for Jefferson County, that's about $10 million. And then, of course, when I was with the examiners of public accounts, it depended on the school system, and that could be many, many millions of dollars.
Thank you.
I wanted to be the one to ask this question just because I think it's really important. And I think in the first question, you were asked about, how the governance of the system works with the board, the superintendent, and all the department heads. The CSFO is, it's unique, and you have to work closely with the superintendent. And you hope, and it is true with us, that our superintendent's very strong. So if you have a disagreement that is borderline on a disrespectful level, either way, like how would you handle that situation?
Well, I would hope it would never reach a disrespectful disagreement. I do think that I can maintain my composure, that I can work with anyone That's just the way I feel about that. I think a lot of the times we just need to let the other person talk, let them know that they're being heard, and then try to approach the situation to say, we're all trying to get to the same end. So let's try to work together on that. What can we do to that? But most of the time, probably all of the time, I do not think that I would retaliate or respond in a negative fashion. That's just unprofessional. And I would do my best to say, let's work together. What can we do together to make it all work?
So we have 3 very strong finalists for this position with different credentials and experience. Why should we select you?
Well, as I said in the opening statement, I am a Hoover resident. My daughter is in the Hoover school system. She's about to go to Hoover High School this next fall, which is terrifying.
It will be okay.
I have a vested interest in Hoover. I enjoy seeing the growth. I enjoy the debates that I read online to see how we're going, what people's opinions are of that, and forming my own opinions of how we think we need to move forward. And being a part of this system, I think that we can certainly be part of that. I'd like to see Hoover continue to grow. 14,000 students, I think we're close to that, or right at that, is remarkable. That's wonderful to continue at this level, and I'd love to see it continue to grow.
Good. Describe your knowledge of local, state, and federal funding for school systems, again, within a kind of narrow scope. Specifically, address your understanding of ad valorem tax assessments and the factors that can cause fluctuations in their value and thus influence the budget, a la amendments, etc.
Okay. As I stated earlier, I know the bulk of the school board's revenue would come in between October and December, and that is due to property taxes, the ad valorem taxes. The property taxes are assessed and they're due by October 1st. They give them a grace period until December to come in. And then after that, it's going to be your smaller ad valorem taxes that come in each month. The fluctuations can be anything from property tax values or housing values, what the market is doing to either inflate or deflate the cost of our homes and how they're valued. I have seen just in the 10 years that I've lived here, I've seen my own home go up, go down and come right back up. And it's just a matter of what is the market doing as far as that goes.
And thank you, that's a good answer. We're all faced with it wherever we are. In some cases, I know that Jefferson County's lost some businesses. We've lost a couple here. So even though everything's in arrears, that forces you to look forward and budget for where you think those collections will actually, after they're assessed and come forward. So it's constantly moving.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how y'all do it, but
It's a moving target.
Thank you.
It is.
Do you want to ask another question, or do you want me to go? Okay. Let me see. Okay, we're kind of dovetailing on Ms. Tosney's question with, not talking about contentious relationships or anything, but there might be a time when a CSFO might receive conflicting requests or instructions from the superintendent and the board, for instance. What strategy do you think you would use in this type of situation to kind of reconcile those two instructions?
I think most of the time that the two parties are probably trying to get to the same place. A lot of it relies on communication. Do we have, are we communicating the same thing? And I think that's what I would start with. Probably come to the board and come to the superintendent and say, where are we going with this? Are we all trying to get to the same thing? Because usually it's just a matter of saying it in a different way to arrive at the same answer. And I think that's mostly what's going on when you have conflicting information like that. It's just said a different way on this side than it is on this side, but mostly we're all trying to get to the same spot.
I have no more questions for this candidate.
Are you a Title I district?
We are.
Okay, I can see your numbers here. Do you know what Hoover is, or how we treat Title I funds?
I do not.
We're targeted. Do you think you would understand how to very successfully, our employees that take targeted funding and use it so we can scatter it among the schools? So we're very fortunate that we are able to do that. So it's, I don't know how the staff does it, but we're able to take Title I funds and use them within the 17 schools where most needed. So.
That's wonderful.
Any additional?
I have no questions.
Any additional questions from the board?
Nope.
All right, we want to take a little extra time. If you have any questions for us or anything you want to say in closing, the floor is yours.
Well, like I said, I do feel like I have been working towards this goal. I have 23 years of auditing and accounting experience. This is something that I have looked forward to. There's a part of me that really wants to make it clear that I'm not looking to leave Jefferson County. I just feel like this is a great opportunity and I can't pass it up to at least try. Hoover is my home, and like I said, my daughter is going to be a product of the Hoover City School System. She is, like I said, going to be at Hoover High in the fall, and I would hope that I could be a part of that, of helping her education go further and just working for all the students of Hoover City.
It's obvious that we all took the time to read your resume and your accomplishments. The auditors got to touch, I guess, everything in finance. So it's very impressive.
We get to play a lot.
An important toy.
They asked us about how are we creative in our job one day in one of our meetings, and everybody in the accounting department didn't say a word. And I said, why aren't you accounting? I said, that gets us in jail. Not being creative in accounting, it's not allowed.
Well, as any board, anything else, Dr. Martin?
No, thank you.
Okay. We'll, just to let you know where we are after all the interviews are over, we will decide to have a special call meeting so that we can possibly select one of the 3 candidates. And so we will let you know something as the board gets up there. Thank you again so much for
Appreciate
coming.
the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank
You
you.
did a great job.
It was nice to meet all of you.
Thank you.
You too.
We have a couple in between.